Hi, I'm Brandon Grant, Marketing Director here at QuoteWerks. Today we're going to demonstrate how to use the Autotask integration in QuoteWerks Web. Before we get started, there's just a couple of key notes and features we want to discuss. First, important to note is that QuoteWerks Web is an add-on to QuoteWerks Desktop. This means that it will utilize your existing licensing and features you already have in your QuoteWerks Desktop installation. Additionally, this means that you'll be able to utilize your existing system settings, security rights, templates, and layouts without having to recreate those for your web users. QuoteWerks Web is only $10 per user per month, and since it is an add-on, this means you will not have to repurchase a completely new system to take advantage of QuoteWerks Web. Additionally, no one will be forced into using it. If you only want a couple of your reps to use it, you can buy licenses just for them. Another one of the key features of QuoteWerks Web is the utilization of your existing data. This means no migration costs or complicated imports and exports, and no constant syncing required. QuoteWerks Web will tie in directly to your existing QuoteWerks database and let you not only edit existing documents, but create new ones that are also available immediately in QuoteWerks Desktop. To host your QuoteWerks database, we are offering a database hosting service, or if you'd like, you can do it yourself. We do have instructions for setting up your installation if you do decide to do it yourself. Simply contact our tech support team or look in our QuoteWerks help file. And finally, QuoteWerks Web has a full Autotask integration available, including support for contacts, opportunities, creating and updating account notes, the Autotask item list, and much more. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to begin by first opening our web browser and navigating to na.quoteworks.com. Once there, we will be brought to the QuoteWerks Web Login screen. Here's where you will enter your tenant account number, username, and password. And then simply click the login button to log you in to QuoteWerks Web. The QuoteWerks Web home screen has two icons in the middle of the screen. If I click on the drop-down of the Open menu, you'll see a list of existing documents I've recently worked on in QuoteWerks Web. If I click on New, I'll have the option to start with a new quote, a new order, a new invoice, or select from an existing template that I had previously created. For our example, I'm simply going to select New Quote. I'm going to give my quote a name. In this case, we'll call it our Autotask example and click Create. After my document is open, you will start to receive confirmation messages in the bottom right corner of QuoteWerks Web. Anytime you add items, pull contacts, pretty much perform any action in QuoteWerks Web, you'll see a confirmation message in the bottom right corner of the window. Now that we have a document open in QuoteWerks Web, it's going to look very similar to QuoteWerks Desktop, but there are a few minor changes we want to discuss. First, on the left-hand side, we do have our navigation panel as well as a hamburger menu at the top. The hamburger menu is where you can log out of QuoteWerks Web, so if you ever need to exit or close out your session, this is where that can be done. The workbook is just like the workbook in QuoteWerks Desktop, where you have access to your document items, sold to, shipped to, sale info, notes, custom, links, and quote Valet tabs. Additionally, you'll have access to the File, Edit, Products, Contacts menu, the Save button, and the Deliver window. Let's select the Documents option from the navigation panel, and you'll see here is where you can search for existing documents. This will bring up any documents you've created in QuoteWerks Web or QuoteWerks Desktop, and you can search by the various document types, document name, number, filter by sales rep, and even the company that it was sold to. The next option is the Products. Products will show you a list of all the product databases you have set up in QuoteWerks. We'll also have your search for Utilize available here as well. We're going to come back to that in just a few minutes. Contacts would be the next option. This is where you can select contacts from Autotask to pull into your document. And then finally, if you have a Quote Valet account, you'll have access to logging into Quote Valet Insight, the reporting engine for Quote Valet, available directly in QuoteWerks Web. So let's go ahead and go back to our workbook. And just like in QuoteWerks Desktop, if we want to start a new quote like we do here, we want to start with selecting the contact first. So I'm going to click on my sold to, shipped to, and then you see I have the option to select or search for a contact. And when I click on that magnifying glass, that'll bring me to the contacts navigation panel window. And then I can search by account name, first name, last name, phone, account ID, or account number. So in this case, we'll just search for our company, Aspire Technologies. And it'll return back with, in this case, 10 results. Once I've made my decision of which contact I'd like to select, I can simply highlight them. And then down at the bottom, I have the option to pull them into the sold to, shipped to, or bill to fields. Or you can use the all button and that'll pull the same contact into all three fields. You'll also see when you do that, you'll receive a confirmation that the contact was added to your current document. To go back to our document, we simply need to click on our workbook shortcut. Now that we have our contact selected on our sold to, shipped to tab, we can start building our document in QuoteWerks Web. So I'm going to click on my document items tab, and in our example, I'm going to add a couple section headers to kind of organize my document ahead of time. So if I right click, you'll see there's an option for insert section header, and we'll put in one for products and hit OK. And then we'll go ahead and we'll add in another one for services. And we'll add just one more section header, and this one we'll call optional items, just so we can add a couple of optional items to our document. We'll add those in there. Okay, now that we have our section headers, we can start adding products and services to this document. To add items to QuoteWerks, you have a couple options. You'll have the option to go to your product lookup menu, or you can click on your products navigation panel. Either one will bring you to the same screen in QuoteWerks Web. In this case, I have my product databases of my Autotask labor, products, and services. I have my own internal QuoteWerks database that I've set up of demo items and a second one of our products. If I wanted to pull an item from Utilize, I can do that search as well. So let's go ahead and pull an item from the Autotask products database. And you can see I can type in a specific description. So if I wanted to search for something like Cisco, contains or begins with, and click find. And then I can make my selection of, we'll just select a couple of items. And once you make your selection of the items, simply click on add selected products to the current document, get your confirmation message. And then if we want to go back to the workbook, we can see that those two items have now been added to our document. So if we go back to our products lookup screen, you'll actually see it saved your search. So if you wanted to keep looking for items in maybe your Autotask services database, let's just do show all here. And in this case, we'll select a couple items. We'll just use our couple items, top two, add them to our document, go back to our workbook, and they're in there, and then let's go ahead and go back to our products window. So searching for items through your database is going to be very easy and very similar to QuoteWerks Desktop. Now Utilize will be a little different. The interface has been updated and changed a little bit to hopefully make things a little easier to find. The functionality is going to remain the same. We've actually added a new feature as well. So in the Utilize search window, we're going to type in trip light switch. And that's a pretty generic term that we're searching for. And the reason I'm showing this one is because it's going to return over 50 results. So what we can do is now use the filtering that's available here with categories, manufacturers, and features and attributes to kind of drill down to the items that we're looking for. So for instance, if I know I'm looking for a switch box, I can click on switch box, and that'll narrow my results down to 132 items. And then if we go into features and attributes, maybe we go to product family and select Net Commander here, you'll see there's only 11 items. So it makes it much more manageable to kind of filter through that list and search for the item that you're looking for here. So now that we have our search results in Utilize, we can start to get our pricing and availability. So just like in QuoteWerks Desktop, if you click on the little lightning bolt, that will load your pricing and availability from the supported distributors for that particular item. And QuoteWerks Web will also automatically display the availability between the distributors that you've set up. I have Tech Data, Ingram Micro, Synex, and D&H set up, so it's going to display all four. And I can see clearly that Tech Data has one, with Miami having it in stock, and then Vendor Direct 30, or Ingram Micro, Synex, and D&H. So quickly and easily lets me see and break down the availability in each warehouse between vendors. If I wanted to select it from, say, Tech Data, it's highlighted in green just like it is in QuoteWerks Desktop, so I know it's the best cost. I know the vendor has it, so I can choose Select, and then that'll add it to my current document. I also have access to the accessories, similar items, and upsell items tabs here as well. So for accessories, if I know there's a connector cable that I need to include, I can click on the category of connector cables, get pricing for one of these cables, in this case just a Cat5 cable, get my pricing and availability, and looks like Ingram Micro has the best pricing, so we'll go ahead and we'll source it from Ingram. That'll be added to my document, and then we can even collapse this window if we want to go back to the original view. If I want to collapse this view for this particular window, I can do that by clicking on the collapse button. That will return me to the search results window here. Now if I select another item and I click on the pricing and availability, it'll look for the item from these distributors. Now if none of the distributors are carrying this item, maybe it's no longer carried by any of my distributors and I get that notification, you have a couple options. You can use the similar items and upsell items to get pricing for items, or you can actually remove it from your search results. So since I'm not going to be able to sell this item, since my distributors are no longer carrying it, I can click on the little gold button here, and that will actually remove that item from my search results in this particular search. So the next time I do the search, the item may appear because the distributors may be carrying it, but at least for this particular search here, it's no longer going to be displayed in my search results window. Now we do have a couple other buttons that are going to be available as well. So we have a new button, which is going to be the Workspace button. And if I click on the Workspace button, and I'll just select a couple of the top three here. When I do that, you'll see this Workspace tab now has 3 selected. And if I click on Workspace, this will actually show these 3 items here. The Workspace is a great place to save items that you might need to use for another quote, that you're going to use on maybe multiple documents, or you want to have a bunch of items saved. This won't save them permanently, but it'll save it in your session. So as long as you remain logged into QuoteWerks Web, anything you add to the Workspace will be saved. So if you had a hard time maybe finding an item, or just an item you know you're going to be quoting a lot of and you just want to be able to quickly get the pricing and availability before you add it back to the document, you can save it to your Workspace here and it'll be available for you to use until you log out of QuoteWerks Web. If we go back to our search window here, you also see we have the compare window, and the compare functionality is available. This is also available in QuoteWerks Desktop, but this functionality works the exact same way, where any items added to your compare window will appear. This is going to be limited based on your screen size. I think so far we've seen about 10 to 15, depending on the size of the items and the size of your screen, your monitor that you're loading QuoteWerks Web in. But this will allow you to pull those items in and compare them across each other. You can even get your pricing and availability across these items. So if you want to compare and see which items have the best cost with stock, that type of information, that's readily available for you right here in the compare window. And then the last icon that's going to be in Utilize is going to be the little heart icon, and this will add it to your favorites list. And your favorites list are a saved list of items. So the difference between the Workspace and the favorites is the Workspace is kind of like a temporary holding for those particular items, where the favorites is permanent. The favorites will actually save it, and it's a per user setting. So anything you save in this favorites tab will remain there until you choose to remove it by clicking on the remove button here in the favorites window. You see, you'll also have the ability to get your pricing and availability from here from the favorites window. Okay, so now that we've kind of discussed Utilize, we've added a couple items, let's go ahead and go back into our documents. We're going to go back into the workbook. One of the really nice features about QuoteWerks Web is it will remember your settings when you're searching for items. So if I click on back into products, you'll see it'll save that I was back in Utilize, and it has my search results up. So as long as you don't clear that, that'll actually stay up for this particular document that you've been working on. So if we go back to the workbook, you'll see we have all of our items and our heading lines. They're not in the right order, so we want to move things around. So one of the great features in QuoteWerks Web is the ability to drag and drop items. So for instance, if I said, okay, I want to move my products heading to the top and then we'll put my services 1 second, and then my optional items 1/3. That's perfect. And then what I can do is I can highlight all of my products, and we'll just do those, and then drag them up into the products section. And the products or any items that you're dragging and dropping don't have to be continuous or contiguous. They can be in any order, and you just highlight them holding the control button on your keyboard, and you can drag and drop those items to the correct location. Same thing with my services here. We'll just take this one and we'll drop it into services. And then, so I have an extra line item here, so if I click on my edit window, I can actually delete it from my document items tab. And then now I'll be left with just the items that I have on the document items tab that I want to quote. Okay, so now that I have my items in the order that I'd like, let's go ahead and move some of the things around, maybe make some changes to the items. So just like in QuoteWerks Desktop, you can easily change the quantity. So if I wanted to change this item to 3, and maybe this item to 2, and this one to 5, we can easily click through and do that. Additionally, if I wanted to edit the description of an item, I can double click in the description, and then I can see the entire description window. So if I wanted to add text to this, I can do that. And then I can hit enter or tab out of it. Or if you click on the toggle description panel, that'll actually load up the description panel here at the bottom. And this is extremely useful because it makes it easy for you to make a change to the text. And then you can go to the next one and make the next change, and then go to the next one and make the next change. So you can quickly, without having to double click in the window, go through and make any adjustments to your items that you need to. So I'll just update a couple of the descriptions there, and then I can simply toggle that description panel off. Additionally, since we have over 150 columns in the QuoteWerks desktop and web on the document items tab, want to be able to make changes to some of these other columns without having to scroll all the way to the right. So you can click on the toggle item panel. This will actually open up all of the columns that are available. And if I uncheck this order by name, it has it by default, has those items listed alphabetically. I can then use or make changes to these items. So for instance, if I want to say this one 3 and change my description, change my product type, add a cost modifier, price modifier, any changes I want to make here, I can quickly go through and make those changes, and then I can close out. Or if you wanted to go back into one, you can click back into it and make those changes. So very easy to make adjustments and changes to any of your items in QuoteWerks Web. We also do have access to the line attributes in QuoteWerks Web. So if I highlight, we'll just highlight both these items here. So my 2 optional items. If I right click on my 2 selected items, you can see I have access to it by clicking on Edit Line Attributes, or I can click on the Edit Line Attributes shortcut in the grid toolbar. For our example, I'll just go ahead and choose Edit Line Attributes, and this will bring up the Line Attributes window. So if I wanted to set these items as optional, since I have them under an optional section header, I'll choose yes. Can choose if they're selected, and we'll even support the exclusive group. So if you're using Quote Valet and you want to give your customer the chance or the option to select between like a good, better, best options, you can use the exclusive group. For our example, I won't need to do that, and then simply click OK to make the changes take effect. We also do have the other attributes available as well. So if I select an item, and in this case this item is recurring, and I wanted to change the recurring cycle from monthly, quarterly, or annual, I can do that, and I can also specify my dates here as well. So if I want to say, okay, we'll start tomorrow, and it'll go for, actually we'll say, we'll do 1 more year. And then we can click OK. So the other item we have on the grid toolbar is the set dependent quantity. This is how our simple labor feature essentially works, how you can use it on the fly. So if you want to link items together with the same dependent quantity, you're able to do that. Okay, so we've made some changes to our document. Let's go ahead and get ready to send it to the customer. The first thing we want to do is save anything that we've changed recently. So we'll click on the save icon. And this will bring up the save quote window. It should look very similar, where you have your document name, your document number, where you can change if you'd like, the status of the document, and the project number. This is what's going to trigger the Autotask integration, just like in QuoteWerks Desktop. So we can choose if we want to create and update the sales opportunity, create and update the quote, the account, notes. We can do all of that, and then click OK. And then this will open up the create or update opportunity window in QuoteWerks Web. From here, we'll be able to set the opportunity name. So for instance, by default, we're using the document name and the quote number. We're also going to be able to change whether we're creating a new Autotask opportunity, or if you want, you can link to an existing opportunity. For our example, we're just going to create a brand new one. We can set the owner, stage, status, projected close date, probability, and rating. So if we say, okay, it's going to close maybe a week from now, we can do that, and then simply click Save. And then this will start the process of creating that opportunity in Autotask. If you check the checkbox to create the Autotask quote, because you want that line item information written into Autotask, the Autotask quote window will appear here. This will be the quote name in Autotask, so it's just using, again, the document name. If you want to put in a specific description, such as quote is available in QuoteWerks, you can add that. The quote number, this is the Autotask quote number, so that'll be assigned as soon as we save it. Our creation date will be set for us, our effective date and expiration date, contact name, the external quote number, so that would be the QuoteWerks quote number, and then if you want to put a comment, you can do that as well, and simply click Save, and then that will create the quote in Autotask, and you'll see it'll actually write the line item information into Autotask as well. And then once that finishes, we'll then be prompted to create the new Autotask account note. So if you want to add something else to the opportunity, maybe you need to set up a specific like call or follow-up or some type of account note, you can use the action type here and set it. So for instance, if you wanted to do a call, you can put in a description of the call. And we can even use our spell check here to fix that. Set the start time, who it's assigned to in your organization, and the end time, and then if you want to link it to the contact and the opportunity, you can do that. If you need to create more than one action type, you just simply click on Save and New, and that will prompt you to create another one, or if you just need the one, we can just do Save and Close, and that'll create that account note. Again, if you had selected the one-off activity note, maybe you need something, another notice for someone else, you can do the Create Account To Do, and you'll have that option here, and we can set one up if we need to. For our example, I'm just going to go ahead and cancel out since we already have one in there. So now that our document has been saved and we've sent the information over to Autotask, we can actually open up Autotask to view this information. So let's go ahead and open up Autotask in another tab. So I'm just going to switch tabs here and click on Autotask. And then if we go into our opportunities and search, we can quickly find the Autotask opportunity that we created. So here it is. So here's our Autotask example. Click on that opportunity, and that'll open up our opportunity in Autotask. And then if we need to make any changes, we can do that. If you'd like to view the quote, you can click on the Autotask quote here, and that'll open up the quote so you can see the items that have been sent over. You can see your monthly items versus the one-time items that are on the document. So everything looks good, so we're going to go ahead and close out of there, switch back to QuoteWerks Web, and we're ready now to deliver this document to the customer. So we'll go ahead and click on the Deliver icon here, and that'll open up the Deliver window in QuoteWerks Web. QuoteWerks Web Deliver window is going to look a little different than what you're used to in QuoteWerks Desktop, but it has a lot of the same functionality and works very similarly. So the first thing, if we want to select a cover page, we'll click on our Cover Page tab, click on the drop down and select our cover page document. We can then go to the layout and select the layout that we'd like to use, in this case our Quote Galaxy. Just like in QuoteWerks Desktop, if you'd like to attach a second document or a second layout, you're able to do that. We can add some literature to our document, so if we want to select the support agreement here, we can do that. If you have any spec sheets associated with the document, those will be available just like in your literature tab, and then same thing for the links tab, those would be available as well. And then on the current selections window, this is where it's going to be slightly different, is you can change the order of these by dragging and dropping. So for instance, if I'd like my cover page to print first, simply just drag and drop it to the top, and that will be the new order that they appear in my document. So let's go ahead and preview this document before we send it to the customer. So we're going to click on our print preview button. This is going to process our document so we can view it. Now it'll automatically open up the PDF in a new tab. If you don't see that open automatically for you, maybe you don't see a message or anything, go back into the QuoteWerks Web window and look in your browser and see if the pop-up has been blocked. If the pop-up has been blocked, just tell it to always allow pop-ups from QuoteWerks Web, and then it'll open up your preview panel here. Okay, so our document has our cover page filled in with our macroed information. We can scroll down, have our notes from our notes tab available, and then we get into our actual licensing information. So we have our products, their items listed here, services, our optional items, and then a summary on the next page, what's billed monthly, all broken out, including our support agreement that the customer can sign. So everything looks great, ready to send it to the customer. As always, you're able to email directly from QuoteWerks. So we can set up the email in QuoteWerks Desktop. You'll actually see that option is available under your Tools My Preferences menu to set up the email window. So we can send it as a PDF just like we would in QuoteWerks Desktop and make any changes or adjustments as needed. For those of you that are using Quote Valet, that's also going to be available, so you can click on Upload to Quote Valet and it'll bring up a very familiar window where you can view the PDF, choose the document or the customer facing page you want to use in Quote Valet, click upload. We can preview it on Quote Valet, make sure everything looks okay. Everything looks good. And then we can actually send it to the customer. And just like in QuoteWerks Desktop, you'll have the link where you can send out to the customer and click send. Okay, so now that our document has been sent to the customer signed off on it or they viewed it, you'll see the Quote Valet tab is available in QuoteWerks Web, so any documents you send will be available. You'll be able to see that activity, so as the customer views it, accepts it, makes payment, any of those changes, you'll actually see that information updated here in Quote Valet. So for instance, if we go into the customer side of things, and let's go ahead and just sign off on this document, so we agree to the terms and conditions, and sign our name, click to accept. That'll bring us to the acceptance screen in Quote Valet. And then if we go back into QuoteWerks Web, we'll refresh it, we'll receive our notification that the document has been accepted and signed. And we'll see our convert this quote to an order window just like we would in QuoteWerks Desktop. If you're not using Quote Valet, no worries. If you go to your file window, you'll see there's an option for convert to order. So you can still convert this quote to an order. Click OK. And that'll convert that quote to an order. And then it'll prompt you to update that opportunity in Autotask. So here, it'll automatically set the status as closed. If you want to adjust the stage, maybe we call it closed as well. Maybe this stage you want to say, or the probability will be set to 100. Rating will be set to hot, obviously. And then you can simply click save to update that opportunity in Autotask and go forward from there with your normal process. And then the Autotask quote, this will also be updated specifically if anything has changed, maybe before the customer accepted it, they wanted some items changed, quantities changed, new items, removal of items, whatever it is, we'll actually update the quote in Autotask before we completely close this in QuoteWerks Web. So that's it. Very straightforward process, and as you can see, QuoteWerks Web has a lot of the functionality that you need in order to create those documents and convert them to orders and continue with the normal sales process, including that integration with Autotask. So in summary, QuoteWerks Web supports the full Autotask integration. QuoteWerks Web is an add-on and is only $10 per user per month. QuoteWerks Web is also concurrently licensed. This means not all of your desktop users will need a QuoteWerks Web license, just the ones who actually need access to QuoteWerks Web. Additionally, QuoteWerks Web uses your existing licensing features such as real-time equalizing Quote Valet, so you'll have access to that functionality through the QuoteWerks Web interface. For additional questions, feel free to reach out to our QuoteWerks support team. Thanks for watching.